I still come back to the point that I think that Moses is the author in so much as he was the orator. He was the one who recounted all of these events that he saw. But I do think that there may have been one, two more amanuenses, people that actually wrote this down. And it may well be that on such and such a day he had John helping him, and then Bill on the next day, and Fred on the day after that. And those three documents were put together, written by three different people, but they're all the words of Moses. And so you're going to get variants of style, you'll get variants of word usage, you'll get all sorts of different variants. If somebody says that Moses didn't write it, i.e. that this is not something that Moses actually said, and it's all coming from somebody else, then I'd say, well, I'm not sure about that at all. I've got no problems with it all being compiled together and put into a cohesive, ordered structure, and that may well have been post-Moses' death. They could have divvied that up and sorted it out and said, well, what bits have you got? Well, I've got he said this, and I've got he said this, and how does that go in the narrative? Right, let's put it all together, and now we've got one big scroll that says all of this. I've got no issue with that at all. In fact, you make a mosaic out of Moses, don't you?
Very good.
So I wouldn't have a problem with that. I would have a problem saying, well, actually, Moses didn't say any of it, and some other person wrote it in 300 years later. And I go, well, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. For me, that undermines the intent of the book. Also, remember that the Hebrew was translated into the Greek at least 300 odd years before Christ walked the earth, in the Greek Septuagint format. This book's been around for a long time.
I just want to re-emphasize what you talked about ghostwriters. A ghostwriter is someone who will be writing but won't get the credit for it. There are many celebrity books that come out with the name of the celebrity on it, but they've not written any of it. And in fact, even some people that are considered to be authors haven't written the work. It may come as a shock to some people that Eric van Lustbader ghosted for Robert Ludlum. Robert passed away, and to finish off a book, Eric van Lustbader finished off for him. The Count of Monte Cristo was partly ghost written. So some of the classic books that we consider as some of the greatest books ever written weren't actually written wholly by the person whose name is on the front cover. Does that invalidate those books? I don't think it does. No one seems to have a problem with them, so no one should have a problem with Moses having written the first 5 books. I'm just going to finish off with a quotation. The Anam Chara, or The Spiritual Wisdom from the Celtic World, is written by John O'Donoghue. He talks about the following, and this is what, for me, the Pentateuch is all about. Words are the oblique mirrors that hold your thoughts. You gaze into these word mirrors and catch glimpses of meaning, belonging, and shelter. Behind their bright surfaces is the dark and the silence. Words are like the god Janus, or Janus in Latin. They face outward and inward at once. How do I link that to the first 5 books? The books are full of words and phrases. They're like mirrors for our thoughts. In this case, you, as a Christian, would say it's God, via Moses, coming to you, the outward reach of those words. As an atheist, I would accept the same. The key is how you interpret them. It's the inward penetration of those words into your mind. They're like mirrors, mirrors to the world and to our soul, but it's a two-way mirror. And I think rather than talking about the mechanics of who wrote what, who did this, it's the message. Go beyond the words and look what's behind them. Why do people revere them in more than one faith? Why do people revere them who are not of those faiths?
There is an author behind the author, and that's what you've touched into. We're talking about a divine author who is working through human agency in order to convey a message. And the message is to show how his basic principles and interactions with humanity are such that a relationship can be developed with him in order to empower and for the betterment of humanity. That is the thrust of where all of this comes from.